we continue the debate, I just wanted to just point out something. I wanted to point out to members, just to point out standing order number 44. If we look at 44.2, it clearly talks about matters which are in court, sub judice. It also, on subsection 44.3, it shall be out of order to attempt to reconsider any specific question that has come to a conclusion during the session of the House. And I also want to point out to members 44.5 in regards to how do we address members in this honorable House. You have ministers who shall be referred to by their designation. Elected members who are not ministers shall be referred to by names of their district for which they have been elected, and senators other than ministers shall be referred to by name. I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out a matter. Earlier, I have not made a decision on the matter, but in regards to members and the privilege of the House. And I refer to that specifically to the member for Rosa North. I have not made a decision yet. I'm waiting for the recording from GIS, in which the member, in back and forth and side talk, indicated that, and I can't quote it because I can't remember the exact words, but something dealing with civil war. It's a matter of breaching parliamentary privilege, and it's a serious matter. But in this budget debate, I tried my best to restrain myself this morning to ensure that the real debate occur. Because of that matter, other members will be allowed to debate, but in regards to the member of Rosa North, until I'm clear on a decision, after I have all the information, I will have two options. One, if it is okay when we evaluate it, we will just caution. The other option is, if the matter, when we evaluate it, is very serious, we will give the member the opportunity to apologize to the Honorable House. In that matter, if he does not withdraw and apologize, one, I will not allow him to debate, and two, I might have to take it to the Privileges Committee. This is a serious matter. And the listening public and members of this Honorable House could see how restrained I was, because I did not want to get involved in the debate, especially in a budget debate. So for now, we will proceed with the debate. So debate continues. And I recognize the Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs, Investment and Planning, Senator the Honorable Gregory Riviere, at the podium. Senator, you could remove your mask. Thank you. And I remind that ministers have 1 hour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to the presentation of the National Budget 2020-2021. Let me begin by commending the people of Dominica, both here and in the diaspora, for ensuring that during these perilous times, in a world full of crisis, uncertainty, and dismay, we continue to journey on. But more important, Mr. Speaker, we always ensure that we have the right driver. Mr. Speaker, any country in the world that have gone through Tropical Storm Erika and lost 90% of GDP, 2 years later, Hurricane Maria destroying 226% of GDP. And now, to be hit by this COVID-19, it is expected, Mr. Speaker, that that country's economy would be contracted by double digit. Mr. Speaker, the reason why Dominica can continue to remain afloat and not plunge into a financial precipice like we had seen in the days around 1999, Mr. Speaker, speaks to its strong leadership, its prudent and responsible financial management, and most importantly, the trust and confidence placed in this government by the international community. Mr. Speaker, in light of this, I would expect that the leader of the opposition and his team would come here this morning, or rather this afternoon, dressed in red, with palm branches, waving and shouting, "Glory, glory, we have gotten it correct." But instead, Mr. Speaker, they come here with the same rhetoric of preaching doom and gloom, blaming and complaining, not realizing, Mr. Speaker, that is the very attitude that will have them remain seated over there for a very long time, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for 1 minute, after listening to the leader of the opposition, is he in the House? For 1 minute, I thought I was living in a different country than him, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I came here with the intention to learn something from my pal rep. As a new man in the House, Mr. Speaker, but unfortunately, there was absolutely nothing to learn, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, all I conclude from his presentation was a lack of preparation, total disregards for the facts, and a mixture of confusion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I bring you warm greetings from the Marragot Constituency, the wonderful people of Marragot and Concord. I also bring you greetings from the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Planning, Resilience, and Sustainable Development. And of course, Mr. Speaker, I will be addressing this Honorable House on the portfolio of Economic Affairs and Planning. But let us look at the budget, Mr. Speaker. As I take an introspective look into the annual estimate, I cannot help but pause to commend the Honorable Prime Minister for his sterling leadership and the articulation of a hope-inspiring budget. Mr. Speaker, he is doing so at a time when the entire world is grappling with recent day challenges and with very few answers, Mr. Speaker. He's presented a budget that assures good health and well-being, lives and livelihoods, security and investment, and systems which have the best interests of all at heart. This national budget, Mr. Speaker, is a policy document which not only inspires hope, but one which outlines concrete plans of government's intention and commitment to make life better for every citizen in this country. The interventions and leadership of this government has turned hopelessness to hope, Mr. Speaker. Dominica was on a steady growth trajectory with 2 consecutive years of economic growth after Hurricane Maria. Mr. Speaker, real economic activity expanded by an estimated 5.66% in 2019. We saw a 22.9% increase in agriculture, and that is agriculture production, which led to a 20% increase in revenue, that is 2019-2020, Mr. Speaker. And of course, this Honorable House would be aware of what Hurricane Maria did to the agriculture sector, Mr. Speaker. We lost an estimated 485 million, according to post-disaster needs assessment. Thankfully, direct intervention for the enhancing agriculture, resilient and national food security provided a strong boost to activities in that sector in 2019. Mr. Speaker, we also saw expansion in the construction sector. Dynamics in the construction sector, while suggesting normalizing activities in 2019, positively impacted key economic sector, in particular wholesale, retail, trade, transport, storage, and communication, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there was also positive outturn in the tourism sector, with tourist arrival increasing by 42.6% in 2019 compared to that of 2018, of which stay-over tourists increased by 41%. The hotel and restaurant sector grew by 41.9% in 2019, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, overall, there were positive signs that we were able to weather the devastating effect of 2 major disasters in close proximity. In fact, before COVID-19, outlook for 2020 was marked by anticipated strong construction activities stemming from the implementation of large-scale investment, not only in respect to housing development, but the construction of many health centers all over the country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was forecasted, Mr. Speaker, that we would have seen growth of 3.91%. Mr. Speaker, just in January, in 2020, the IMF had already forecasted a growth of 5.5%, Mr. Speaker. As a result of COVID-19, the economic outlook dimmed, Mr. Speaker. It appears to me that the consistent baptism of fire which have confronted this government and people have only served to make us stronger, make us wiser, make us more creative, more innovative, and certainly more resilient, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the extent of this pandemic will obviously vary from country to country. But the type of impact we have witnessed, namely the contraction of activities, resulting in increased unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Hence, taking a heavy toll on the individual families, community businesses, economies, government, infrastructures. Mr. Speaker, COVID-19 hit us really, really, really hard, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine? Extract from the report on the economic impact of coronavirus on Latin America and the Eastern Caribbean, produced by the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, presented the following, Mr. Speaker. Contraction in GDP growth for many Caribbean countries. And listen well, Antigua and Barbuda, minus 7.2%. Bahamas, minus 6. Barbados, minus 5.8, sorry. Belize, minus 3.9. Dominica, minus 3.6. Grenada, minus 7.3. Guyana, of course, Guyana is an outlier because Guyana just recently have the oil. So you expect something positive in Guyana. But all the other countries, Mr. Speaker, we have seen negative growth. Mr. Speaker, the decline in the economy is largely attributable to the standstill in tourism. As a result of the closure of ports, we had a situation, Mr. Speaker, where we had to close down everything. We had to close down everything. But I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, that the contraction of this economy is not unique to Dominica. What is unique to this country, Mr. Speaker, is our ability to bounce back, our ability to rise up from adversity. What is unique to this country is our leadership, Mr. Speaker, our ability to manage crisis. That is what makes us different from the rest of the world, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must reiterate that despite all these challenges, these ups and downs, Dominica is still seen by CNN, Vogue magazine, and many other travel advisors as one of the top 10 destinations to visit in 2020. Mr. Speaker, do you know England didn't make it on the list? Rome didn't make it on the list. But this solid rock of ours, Mr. Speaker, made it on the top 10 to visit in 2020. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Planning, Resilience, Sustainable Development was created after December 2019 election, which saw the ruling Dominica Party, Labour Party, return to power for a 5th consecutive term. And that is not often we say something like that in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. 5 terms, Mr. Speaker. The creation of that ministry was premised on the desire to provide central focus to development needs and of the country, manifested through sustained and inclusive growth, environmental protection and management, and social development, social protection, and poverty reduction. The portfolio of economic affairs, planning, resilience, and sustainable development are critical in the context of small island developing states such as Dominica, which, of course, Mr. Speaker, is threatened by multiple vulnerabilities and shocks, both internal and external. Mr. Speaker, economic affairs provide for the consideration of the fundamentals of present daily requirements of the population, and of course, future national expectations and aspirations. It embodies not only the local economic context, but regional and global trends. In the local domain, national policy, objectives, programs, and projects are aimed to accelerate economic diversification and growth. Mr. Speaker, growth is very important for societal sustenance and advancement. Let us talk briefly, Mr. Speaker, of the national economy. Mr. Speaker, progress has been made in economic diversification in the transition of a new economy, reflecting a greater mix of service, tourism, professional services, wholesale, retail, and government services. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding these gains, however, the frequent devastation resulting from natural disasters has reduced the pace of this transition. The key sectors of economic development remain susceptible to being blown away by the wind of tempestuous change in climate, and more recently, by health challenges such as COVID-19 pandemic. There is therefore the urgency in coupling economic development programs with the objective of socio-economic transformation, national climate resilience, and food security. Mr. Speaker, may I briefly talk about physical planning and the construction sector? My ministry also carries the responsibility for physical planning. In the fiscal year 2019-2020, 206 approvals for building permissions were issued by the Physical Planning Division. In the same fiscal period, the commencement of an additional 79 construction was recorded through monitoring by the Physical Planning Division. Mr. Speaker, the year 2019 marked a recovery in the number of new constructions. This accounted for 35% greater than the average for the decade, an indication of a significant recovery in the construction sector. Mr. Speaker, I urge our citizens of the need to observe approved construction standards. And I say to you that a number of measures are put in place, Mr. Speaker, to deal with some of the challenges at Physical Planning Division. And I refer to one, the review of the Physical Planning Act 2002, increased surveillance of construction, the establishment of technical assistance centers. And Mr. Speaker, may I just say that the establishment of technical assistance centers funded under the World Bank through the Housing Recovery Program will address the challenges or some of the challenges posed by the existing human resource constraint of the Physical Planning Division. A total of $2.7 million as a grant from the World Bank will go towards the operationalization of the TACT. Mr. Speaker, I want to touch briefly, while I look at my clock, on resilience and sustainable agenda. History will applaud this government for rescuing Dominica from the economic crisis caused in the late 1990s, Mr. Speaker. A crisis that was largely attributable to unsustainable debt. And Mr. Speaker, I heard the leader of the opposition talking about money this morning. Talking about money. Mr. Speaker, and he should be here to hear what I'm going to say. There should be the last people in this country to talk about money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to bring one example. Can you imagine? You're going all the way to Trinidad. You take a flight. You go to Trinidad, all the way to Trinidad, and take a loan of $140 million. And listen, at 14% interest, Mr. Speaker. I mean, you could have gone to the Rosa Credit Union and get that. And get a better deal, Mr. Speaker. Marragot Credit Union could help you with that. You could get a better deal, Mr. Speaker. All the way down there for $100. And you know the worst part about it, Mr. Speaker, is that I heard it was for an international airport. But do you know that they defaulted on the first payment, Mr. Speaker? On the first payment. And he come here this morning spending about an hour and a half talking about fiscal management and fiscal responsibility. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it's a shame. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to use the balance of my time to talk about, I'm coming to Marigot in a while, you know. I'm coming to Marigot in a while. Coming to Marigot in a while. The economic crisis in a number of natural disasters, the global financial crisis of 2008 and other external shocks meant that this government had to embark on a robust, prudent, and resilient development agenda to successfully navigate the country back to socio-economic prosperity. This was done by adopting a comprehensive national development planning framework, first with the Growth and Social Protection Strategy, and now the National Resilient Development Strategy 2018-2030, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the National Resilient Development Strategy has deeply embedded a clear vision articulated by the Prime Minister to build the first climate-resilient country in the world. Mr. Speaker, our planning framework lays the foundation and pathway for attaining developed country status by the year 2030. Most importantly, as the principal overarching national strategic planning mechanism, it has guided the priority and thrust of programs and projects undertaken by this government. Of course, these documents are of critical importance, and they should not, Mr. Speaker, remain on shelves. We have to continue to put them into action, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the ministry has the responsibility to ensure that these resilient planning documents remain active, given their elaborate climate resilient development pathway for Dominica. And this is characterized by the following. 1, the promotion of food security and self-sufficiency through climate resilient agriculture and fisheries development. Enhancing the resilience of ecosystems and sustainable use of natural resources. Enhance infrastructure resilience. Promote the sustainable human settlement and communities, provision of adequate and sustainable social protection system with the ability to respond rapidly to the impact of shocks at the individual and household level. Mr. Speaker, while those with a flair of words to this government, words has to be translated into consistent and continuous action. The continuance of this policy agenda is of paramount importance to our resilient government and development paradigm. Building resilience, Mr. Speaker, to multiple hazards is not an option, but it is an imperative. Mr. Speaker, I also believe that history will also applaud this administration for adopting a non-conventional financing modality in the pursuit of creating infrastructure and socio-economic output, and that seek to transform Dominica into a developed country. These modalities have assisted in the buildup of fiscal buffer, which permit us to finance immediate recovery prior to the receipt of official development assistance. Mr. Speaker, think about it. Can you imagine, at this very crucial juncture of our history, a Dominica without Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt and the Dominica Labour Party? Can you imagine what a calamity we would have in the healthcare system at this time? Mr. Speaker, we have already heard it from the opposition, preaching doom and gloom. Those who were expecting that our healthcare system would have crumbled by now, Mr. Speaker. But we have good news for them, Mr. Speaker. The report is clear to all that today we can be comforted that we have 0 active COVID cases, Mr. Speaker. Today we can be comforted that we have 0 deaths, Mr. Speaker. And while they continue to criticize and complain and condemn our effort here in this country of ours, Mr. Speaker, there are people or other countries, Mr. Speaker, that are emulating the very things that we are doing here, Mr. Speaker. There are countries in the world that are waiting to see what protocols we put in place so that they can adopt, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are ranked as number one. Number one. We're talking about the top spot in the entire Americas, Mr. Speaker, in our ability to manage and contain this virus, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, at this juncture, let me commend the sterling contribution of our frontline workers and the general public for their cooperation. Mr. Speaker, this does not only speak volume for our healthcare system. I think every sector in government has proven that we have the ability to manage and manage well, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this country is progressing and is progressing well. From the south in Scots Head to the north in Capuchin, the west in Salisbury to the east in Laplane, we are seeing progress, Mr. Speaker. This Labour Party administration is not a government of all talk. It is a working government by all means, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I see progress in every corner, every crevice in this country, Mr. Speaker. I see progress. And it's only the blind that will not see progress in healthcare, Mr. Speaker. That new Dominica China Friendship Hospital, the new Marragot Hospital, and we'll come back to that. new health centers in several communities, increased number of medical professionals, our progress on management and containment of the COVID-19. I see progress on the EO-Libla Highway, 3 major bridges opening on the very same day, Mr. Speaker. Progress on road rehabilitation across the country, solar light program all across the country, progress in agriculture and trade with increased production, increased markets, increased revenue, progress in education and investment in our human resource capacity, progress in housing, transforming the lives of more than 843 families, Mr. Speaker. Progress in improved water supply across the country. Mr. Speaker, there is enough around us to keep our face smiling for 365 and a quarter days, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very progressive government, and anyone who says otherwise, they better join Fredos on stage and walk with their eyes closed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to spend the rest of my time. Why you want to go to Marigold so early? We still have a little time. Policy context of the 2020-21 Public Sector Investment Program. Mr. Speaker, based on the government's commitment to inclusive and people-centered sustainable growth, the Cabinet has mandated about 44 priority areas as part of a mission to have Dominica the first climate-resilient nation in the world. And I refer to some of those projects are featured in this estimate. Mr. Speaker, these include a major housing revolution being undertaken around the island, the disaster vulnerability reduction project, the rehabilitation of schools financed by the Chinese and Canadian government, the construction of geothermal domestic plant, the World Bank funded agriculture project, the construction of new health centers, the Dominica China Friendship Hospital, and the Marigot Hospital, to name a few. Mr. Speaker, continuing with the ultimate vision of resilience, this government has green-lighted new project in 2020-2021 Public Sector Investment Program as part of priority areas. These include the extension of the housing revolution with the addition of the modern resilient housing development project and the continued upgrade of health facilities and modern resilient health centers all over the country. Mr. Speaker, this includes the rehabilitation of the Maragott and Rosa Fisheries complex at a cost of $27 million to be financed by the Japan International Cooperation Agencies. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has further emphasized that good health of citizens is essential to resilient development. Therefore, in fiscal year 2020-2021, the sum of $43.3 million is allocated to the Ministry of Health. And do you know, Mr. Speaker, that a third of that budget is going to the brand new Marragot Hospital? Mr. Speaker, the Climate Resilient and Recovery Plan mentions 6 focused result areas, one being well-planned and durable infrastructure. Empirically, high-quality infrastructure and transport is regarded as being vital to unlocking the economic potential of any country. Thus, 71.1 million is captured in the budget and allocated to the Ministry of Public Works and the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, we are going to see magic with that digital economy. We are going to see magic, Mr. Speaker. And my colleague earlier on mentioned that we have a very vibrant young man managing that sector, Honorable Kasani Lavelle, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are many other infrastructural works that are going to be undertaken, and I know many of my other colleagues will make mention of them. But I cannot help, Mr. Speaker, to talk about the allocation for the international airport, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is clear, very clear, that we are to clear the way because the bombo jet coming down, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I can see Air Canada, I can see British Airways and Pan Air, Mr. Speaker. I can see international flights banking over the new Marragot Hospital and landing at Wesley, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to be on the inaugural flight. I don't know about you, but I want to be on the inaugural flight, Mr. Speaker. And I know that this airport is really coming because it is the first time that an international airport is featured so prominently in a budget so soon after a general election, Mr. Speaker. Usually, you would hear about international airport close to elections, Mr. Speaker. But this time, it is very clear that we are to clear the way because the bombo jet coming down, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, social planning policy development. A resilient nation must provide care for the most vulnerable member of society to reduce the impact of climatic and other environmental shocks. This is the rationale of the Enhanced Social Safety Net Initiative of the Climate Resilient and Recovery Plan. This Labour Party administration has always focused on its social programs and poses to continue its assistance to the facilitation of the positive contribution of at-risk groups in society. To this end, the development of Social Protection Policy Action Plan project under my portfolio seeks to proffer strategies to improve the efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of social services to the vulnerable persons in society. This project will influence the various programs undertaken by ministries such as youth, governance, and sports to positively impact vulnerable groups. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn my attention now to the Marragot Constituency report. Mr. Speaker, listening to the contribution in this honorable house this morning by the member of Marragot, one would have the impression that nothing positive is happening in the Marragot constituency for the past decade. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, that is certainly not so. The eyes of this government continues to fall on Marragot, just as any other constituency in this country. But nobody takes time to find out what is happening in Marragot. so they could come and report to this honorable house? Nobody. Nobody. Mr. Speaker, as of the end of the financial year, 2019-2020, we have 106 persons on public assistance from Marragot alone, 19 people under the Yes We Care, and 138 recipients of non-pensionable allowance. Example, those people who get in the 70 years and over allowance, Mr. Speaker. That's Maragott. Mr. Speaker, we have 35 interns under the NEP program. We have seen the completion of the Overgutter Road, Mr. Speaker, and the famous dam bridge, Mr. Speaker. We have seen the completion of the dam bridge. Mr. Speaker, we have seen 8 recipients of government scholarships, 13 houses at an advanced stage of construction at Sam's Gutter, Compliment Samaritan Purse and the government of Dominica. To this date, Mr. Speaker, the government has contributed over $400,000 on that project, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another $500,000 went into housing, and over $900,000 through the Rapid Response Program, Mr. Speaker. That is Maragott I'm talking about. Mr. Speaker, we have seen the commencement of 10 houses at Melvin Hall under the Sustainable Housing Program Solution Project, Mr. Speaker. We have seen the resurface of the road from Pegua to Hilltop, and that we're talking about Maragott, Mr. Speaker. Commencement of work on the Valley Road and completion of the Fine Grass Road. Mr. Speaker, we have seen the complete renovation of the Marragot Police Station and the Marragot Sub-Treasury. Mr. Speaker, we have a cocoa sweating and drying facility in Marragot. It has certain words I cannot call. But Mr. Speaker, that facility is 80% complete. And let me just pause to commend Mr. Stewart Parris for producing one of the best cocoa beans in the world, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have farmers from Maragott who are beneficiaries of the World Bank Agriculture Project and homeowners who are beneficiaries of the World Bank Housing Project. Mr. Speaker, many of our students are
15 more minutes.
beneficiaries
Member,
of the school.
Honorable Minister, 15 more minutes.
Sorry?
15 more minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have students. Many of our students, Mr. Speaker, are beneficiaries of the school book and uniform allowance program, Mr. Speaker. Many of them are also part of the school feeding program, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, all our secondary school students are provided with free transportation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the entire, well, before I come to that, Mr. Speaker, Marigold recently benefited from a $0.9 million project to upgrade its water supply, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the entire country is witnessing the construction of a brand new health center and a brand new Marragot hospital, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, the PAL rep had a right to say nothing is happening because he has never visited either of these projects, Mr. Speaker. And I'm subject to correction, but I have never seen it on his Facebook page, and I know you like Facebook. I saw him with his dog on the treadmill, but I didn't see him at the Marragot hospital. I didn't see. Mr. Speaker, the Marragot hospital, I mean, sometimes when I talk about that project, Mr. Speaker, it would almost bring tears to my eye. Because I remember, Mr. Speaker, that during the election campaign, I was like a lone ranger with a few battered lieutenants, people like Mr. Paulo and Lynn, and people like Matt Davis, few of us telling the people that the hospital is coming. But we had two gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, going all over Marragot, telling us that this project is a pie in the sky. We're not going to get no project, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I remember them going to many places. And Marragot has a number of crucial names. You can either find a hill, you can find a gutter, or you can find a hole. Mr. Speaker, these two gentlemen went all over Marragot. They went to Mango Hole. They went to Panto Hole. They went to Crab Hole. They went to Mal Hole. They went to Pussy Gutter, Mr. Speaker. And Sam's Gutter. They went to Rose Hill and Strat Hill, trying to fool the people and telling them that this project is not going to be built. But no, it is there for all to see. The largest single project, Mr. Speaker, the largest single project that has reached the Northeast for the last 50 years, Mr. Speaker. This is the first building with 2 elevators. 2 elevators, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, do you know that that project employs a number of people? And this morning I heard my pal rep talking about youth employment. But ask him, Mr. Speaker, I wish he was here to answer. How many people has he recommended to work on the project at the new Marigold Hospital? How many people? In one day, Mr. Speaker, I took my pickup and I picked up 12 guys at Sam's Gutter and I brought them to work. I brought them to work the very same day, Mr. Speaker. And you want to come here and stand and talk about employment of youth? Employment begins with all of us. We have to play our part to employ people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that facility which will serve the Northeast has an operating theater, ICU, inpatient ward, A&E, lab services, dialysis, X-ray. Mr. Speaker, everything that you will find in Rosa, you will find it in Marragot, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, recently I heard the Prime Minister extended an invitation to some people to come and see what is happening at Marragot. I will not be part of that because, Mr. Speaker, I am in Marragot every day, so I know exactly what is happening in Marragot. So we will extend the invitation to the people who are not aware of what is happening in Marragot. So, Mr. Speaker, with such a record presented, is there anyone in this honorable house who can stand and boldly say that the government doesn't like Marragot people? Is there anyone? This government, Mr. Speaker, has done more for Marragot than any other government in the history of this country. And I say this with absolutely no fear of contradiction, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if there is anyone in this honorable house with the courage to deny these facts, may him say so now. He can text it to you, Mr. Speaker, or forever hold his peace. Mr. Speaker, granted that there is always work to be done. We have to improve. Yes, we have to improve on our farm access roads. We have to improve on some of our village roads. Monkey Hill Road needs some attention. We have to improve on our housing assistance, sporting facilities. We still have our Layo Park to get in order. And I really want to commend the members of the Village Council who are doing a tremendous job in rehabilitating or assisting to rehabilitate Layo Park. Mr. Speaker, I really want to commend them on their effort. But even if we have all that to do, Mr. Speaker, that should not prevent us from showing gratitude for work already being done. And as we journey on, as we continue to journey, I assure the people of Marragot that we will continue, of course, the people of Marragot, that Marragot will continue to be a pillar in the economic and social transformation of this lovely country. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude. I want to make sure I have the correct conclusion. Mr. Speaker, the COVID crisis gives us an opportunity to reset, to come together, and to be even more innovative. The COVID-19 crisis, it recovers and deepens our ambition, our vision of being the first climate resilient country in the world. Mr. Speaker, the budget presented by the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica is meant as a basis to achieve inclusive growth, gender equality, job creation, and most importantly, better resiliency. I wish therefore to conclude by giving thanks to the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, for selecting me as a member of Cabinet and for demonstrating great confidence in my ability to lead with him during these difficult times. And Mr. Speaker, I must say to you that it is not anybody that would recognize a Calypsonian from Sam's gutter and make him a government minister. It's not anybody, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister. I also wish to express gratitude to all my cabinet colleagues, a team of humble, devoted, sincere, and honest laborites who know how to step up to the task, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to express gratitude to the staff of the Ministry of Economic Affairs, Planning, Resilience, Sustainable Development, Telecommunication and Broadcasting, and to the Ministry of Finance for their hard work and continued support. I must single out, Mr. Speaker, my Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Gloria Joseph, for her hard work, leadership, and fortitude. Mr. Speaker, and all the rest of the team who worked so hard to put this budget together. Mr. Speaker, as we continue this most difficult journey. I take comfort in the old traditional hymn written in 1882 by Priscilla Jane Owens. Will your anchor hold in the storms of life? When the clouds unfold their wings of strife, when the strong tides lift and the cables strain, will your anchor drift or firm remain? We have an anchor that keeps the soul steadfast and sure while the billows roll. Fasten to the rock, keep to the rock, stay close to the rock. Fasten to the rock which cannot move, grounded firm and deep in the Savior's love. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I will allow you to speak here, but because no one is directly in the front row.
You want me to go there?
Yeah, I would prefer we maintain the protocol.
No problem, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. Where's Mr. Brown? 1 minute, Senator. We need to change the... Yeah, we need to sanitize and change the name tag. Senator, just a sec. Hold on.
Mr. Speaker, as I rise to make my contribution to this budget, let me thank the people of the Casper's constituency for their continued encouragement and support. Mr. Speaker, I get the impression from the mannerisms and utterances of members on the government side that this government is a perfect government. Nobody is perfect, Mr. Speaker. No government is perfect. The opposition, therefore, comes in to point out the areas where the government falls short. And so, I do not understand, I do not see the reason for bashing the opposition when the opposition members speak to these areas where the government falls short. So I urge members, Mr. Speaker, to give a listening ear. Listen, so that the areas where the government falls short will be corrected, or attention will be given to these areas. Mr. Speaker, with this budget, the difference is clear. I say this because clearly, Mr. Speaker, I see no difference. I see no sound and sensible solution for the social, economic, and political advancement of our nation. And as a result, will ensure shackled hardship for our people under the skyrocketing cost of living. Walk the grounds, Mr. Speaker. Talk with the people, speak with them one-on-one, and we will know exactly what is going on in the constituencies among our people. In the last financial year, Mr. Speaker, $38.7 million was approved to pay salaries in the education sector. This financial year, it has gone down by $2.2 million. Does it mean, Mr. Speaker, that all the teachers who have been employed in the service for all these years will not get a permanent appointment? Does it mean, Mr. Speaker, that the hard-working teachers at the Castleberry Secondary School who have been temporarily appointed for 25 years, 22 years, 15 years, and so on, will not get a permanent appointment? Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to quote from the Prime Minister's budget address of 2018-2019, and I quote, "This government continues to attach high priority to education, as we consider education to be the best means of empowering our people and the catalyst in our developmental thrust. This is why we have created many opportunities in education for our citizens to ensure that they have the necessary skills and knowledge to act as the drivers and the guardians of a resilient nation." End of quote. Mr. Speaker, when our teachers equip themselves with the knowledge and skills required to advance this nation, what do they get in return? Victimization in most cases. Mr. Speaker, the honorable calling of teaching in our schools has been reduced to being one of the most stressful jobs by some of our very hard-working teachers. And Mr. Speaker, the minister responsible for education agrees that the job is stressful. Because when you tell teachers that they cannot survive on a teacher's salary, that they should find alternate jobs. When you tell teachers that even if your name appears on a list of teachers to be appointed, you have to be my people in order to get a permanent appointment. Mr. Speaker, what does that mean? What does that mean? Teachers are highly qualified. Some teachers are very highly qualified. And when an opportunity for upward mobility surfaces, these teachers are disregarded. They are sidelined. They are bypassed. Mr. Speaker, this is a clear sign of unprofessionalism from the top and should be corrected promptly. Mr. Speaker, this is pure victimization and should be stopped. I therefore look forward with great anticipation to the appointment or the permanent appointment of these teachers. I'm going to early childhood education. Mr. Speaker, approximately $729,000 has been approved for early childhood education. Early childhood education is critical to national development and therefore should be part of the formal education system. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that legislation is required to make early childhood education part of compulsory education. Providing access on its own is not enough, as parents are not able to meet the cost of early childhood education and may still not allow their children access. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the government should commit itself to training all early childhood practitioners and compensate them for their work and qualifications so that the cost of early childhood care can be reduced. I wish to emphasize the need to focus on early childhood education. Training should come from local entities because the state college does not have the accredited programs, and therefore certification does not have currency. Mr. Speaker, I saw no head in the estimates or in the budget estimates for special education. I, however, wish, Mr. Speaker, to emphasize that greater effort should be made to train teachers in special education. Currently, there are very few persons on island trained in any area of special education. There is need for a special education center which will provide skills and academic opportunities for special education students. Currently, special education students do not get employment opportunities, especially in the soft skills area. Human resource development. Mr. Speaker, the state spends millions of dollars on paying tuition for students at various universities. Fine. But attempts must be made to establish a database on market demands and the priority technical areas needed through an elaborate market needs survey, and use this to determine the priority areas for funding scholarships. How about bonding recipients of government funds for study? Because on completion of their studies, they can return to contribute to the economy. Also, Mr. Speaker, the salary should be reviewed because it has to be made attractive so that they will come back and remain here. Currently, Mr. Speaker, students receiving funding for their studies, they are receiving the funding, but there is no obligation to return to the country to contribute, in terms of benefits of the investments. A country's dependency on contribution through remittances, Mr. Speaker, represents a primitive method of development. What a country needs is the education, the knowledge, the skills for development. Not persons sending a little cash occasionally, not persons sending a barrel at Christmas time. That cannot contribute to the economy. The country needs medium, short, and long-term development plans which will inform selection of study priorities. Currently, Mr. Speaker, a lot of money is spent on developing human resource capacity for persons who are currently not in the public service. While that may be okay, very little is spent on developing capacity within the public service. And as such, Mr. Speaker, our dedicated public servants rarely receive opportunities of assistance to develop themselves professionally through short or long-term courses or funding for postgraduate opportunities. Let us move on to skills. Currently, Mr. Speaker, there is no national plan for TVET development. The Dominica State College is ill-equipped to offer CVQs, both in terms of human resource capacity and equipment availability. There are limited opportunities for students who leave secondary school with an aptitude for skills development. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, there is urgent need for an established center of excellence and polyclinic for TVET and relevant policies for meeting market demands. Very little effort has been made to train and certify our young people for the employment market in TVET-related areas. After Hurricane Maria, and to this day, it is glaring the number of foreign workers who are engaged in Dominica on projects, while our young people, our local workers with similar skills are still searching for jobs. Mr. Speaker, mention was made of preparations for the new academic year in the light of COVID, as the opening of schools. I wish to reiterate that there should be a deliberate effort to equip all schools with devices for use by teachers and students prior to the commencement of school at the new academic year. Again, internet access should be in all schools and all classrooms. $75 million awarded or approved in the digital economy. I pray that the schools will benefit. Students should be able to fully adopt a blended approach to learning where they can access learning online at school. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, government should assist parents with school-age children who have no access to get internet connection. Plans should also be made to subsidize parents' internet bills where necessary. This should be part of the education safety nets, particularly vulnerable parents. Moving forward in this COVID-19 era, all schools should be provided with monitors and wardens who will inspect and enforce appropriate hygiene practices and demonstrate proper hand washing techniques. Generally, all schools should be retrofitted with the necessary facilities and equipment to assist with proper hygiene. Mr. Speaker, I am moving on to the Rapid Response Unit. Mr. Speaker, in the 2018-2019 financial year, $37 million was spent or allocated to the Rapid Response Social Recovery Agency. In 2019, $15 million was approved. Mr. Speaker, can I get some quiet, please, so I can make my point?
The Honorable Senator is asking for restraint by other members.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Speaker.
let's minimize the asides.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes, let's minimize the asides.
In your mind. I was saying, Mr. Speaker, in 2018-2019, that financial year, $37 million was spent on the Rapid Response Social Recovery Agency. 2019-2020, that's last financial year, $15 million was spent. It's very strange, Mr. Speaker, that this financial year, with COVID-19, when many people have lost their jobs, the country is practically at a standstill. When a stimulus package is really needed, the allocation for the behave yourself. The allocation for the rapid response unit has gone down to just $5 million. Mr. Speaker, there is this, Mr. Speaker, this is geared towards making Dominicans indigent and helpless. Is it because, Mr. Speaker, there is no election to worry about? Mr. Speaker, farmers in my constituency, the Casper's constituency, they are bewildered. It's my constituency. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I am at the microphone. Mr. Speaker, I have one question. Am I wrong, Mr. Speaker, to refer to the Casper's constituency as my constituency? Answer me, Mr. Speaker.
Senator, continue.
Mr. Speaker, answer me. I'm waiting for an answer.
Senator.
I'm waiting for an answer. I'm waiting for an answer.
Senator, you want me to respond to you? I will respond to you. You are a member, huh? You are a constituent.
I cannot hear.
You are a constituent.
Fine.
But you are not, it's not your constituency,
So it's not
unless you are the parliamentary representative.
So it's not my constituency.
No, you are constituent.
It's my constituency, Mr. Speaker. Can I move on? Can I move on, Mr. Speaker? I will refer to it as my constituency.
Yeah, continue.
So, Mr. Speaker.
Continue, Senator.
Mr. Speaker, farmers in my constituency are bewildered. The feeder roads, Mr. Speaker, most of them are abandoned. We have the Richmond feeder road. We have the Fahont feeder road. We have the Johns Hill feeder road. These roads are abandoned. All the others are in deplorable conditions. Vehicles cannot move there. Farmers have to pay from the farm to pay people to carry down their produce to where to the main road. This needs to be given some attention. The Trantor Road is also almost impassable. Farmers need roads in order to access their farms and increase production. They need markets. Hopefully, Mr. Speaker, the vessel that was purchased or supposed to be purchased in 2013 will resurface so that farmers can have a relief. The irrigation system on the Castle stretch has not been touched. Mr. Speaker, some farmers took loans to rehabilitate their plantations, their farms after Maria. And the intense heat this past days, this past month, killed almost all the crops. Had the irrigation system been there, they would have some relief. The irrigation system is essential to production on the Castle stretch. I make a plea on behalf of the farmers in my constituency to reinstate the irrigation system. Mr. Speaker, where the farmers prosper, the poor lead a life of dignity. The middle class get due. They get their due for their hard work. And the businesses get a boost. This is truly allocation of hope and empowerment. Mr. Speaker, there are some people in here who do not like criticisms. But what we give is constructive criticism.
Senator, you can say
and when necessary, Mr. Speaker, we will criticize government's policies. When we do that, it is not for the sake of just doing it. It is because, in our view, we are able to provide credible alternatives, Mr. Speaker. I just gave them a while ago. I say this to say, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it is time for us to stop pretending that this government has created a sustainable economy. It has not. The economy is not successful. The economy is not strong. It is fueled. This economy, Mr. Speaker, is fueled by debt and hopelessness. Mr. Speaker, what people expect to happen in the future determines what people do today. Has the government given up on reviving this economy? The young people need jobs. In the budget, is the allocation set aside for job creation? NEP? The allocation for NEP took a nosedive. It moved from 50 million in 2018 to 9.5 million this financial year. Why this huge decline, Mr. Speaker? Did the people move to sustainable jobs? Did they migrate, or were they just fired? Mr. Speaker,
Seven more minutes.
Mr. Speaker, once again I am asking that the dump created after Maria, just across from the apartment building in Fisheries, be cleared. I made that request in this honorable house in February. To this day, nothing has been done. The Prime Minister passed there recently, and I know he cringed. The first dump has been covered by vegetation, and another one is created. It will soon spill over on the main road. I am again asking on behalf of the people of my constituency, the Fisheries constituency, that this dump be cleared. Because if it is not cleared, Mr. Speaker, remember we're in the hurricane season. We are in the hurricane season. It needs to be cleared before the hurricane season and before there's an outbreak of disease. Through you, Mr. Speaker, I make a plea on behalf of the individuals, some individuals in Petit Soufrière and Good Hope, who are still under tarpaulin, okay? In some cases, with their children. While some people are selling building materials given to them after Maria, these people need a proper home. While their apartments set aside for emergency purposes, these people are living under tarpaulin. While cement was sent to the constituency at a subsidized price and Marragot is using it for her personal use, people are in deplorable conditions. Mr. Speaker.
Hold on. Senator.
I can't sit, Mr. Speaker. I can't sit.
Senator.
No, I don't touch you.
Senator, you are imputing improper motive. You would have to withdraw that. I would ask you to withdraw.
Can I move on, Mr. Speaker?
Withdraw the statement.
Which one should I withdraw? Marragot using the cement for her personal
use.
purpose?
Yeah.
Okay, withdraw that? Okay, Mr. Speaker, I withdraw. Okay, I withdraw. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we need to be our brother's keeper. We need to be our brother's keeper and treat other people the way we expect them to treat us. Mr. Speaker, I expected this budget to tackle the increasingly grim unemployment and livelihood situations of our people. But unfortunately, I didn't see much of that. Mr. Speaker, I describe this budget as insipid. It lacks stimulus growth. It has no clear roadmap. It has no clear roadmap for job creation and no real solution to solve this economic crisis. The people of Saint-Sauveur, we need our fisheries. We need to develop our fisheries. I heard mention made of fisheries in other areas. Saint-Sauveur has a fisheries complex that need development. They need assistance. So, Mr. Speaker, the plan is not there. The plan for boosting the sectors of the economy is not there. I see this budget, Mr. Speaker, as nothing but a litany of old promises. I pray and I hope that the ideas, the strategies that I mentioned in here will be taken on by this government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The name tag also.
All right, comrade. Mr. Speaker, the unpredictability of this global phenomena, I speak of this dreaded COVID-19 disease, has thrust governments into spheres where only the brave survive. Who would have known that our 2020 vision would have been clouded so early by a pandemic? That our world would forever change the way we live, our world would forever change the way we do business. Recognizing that events like these have caused great civilizations to fall, I rise to this occasion confident that our economy, our people, I rise confident that our country will be okay. We are safe in the hands of this government. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lend my unwavering support to this transformational budget here today. I am proud to be on this side of the Honorable House. For I know I am on the side of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. This is the side of service. This is the side of care. This is the side of commitment. This is the side of sacrifice. This is the side of love. I am on the side with experience and effective leadership, Mr. Speaker, to traverse through tough times. I am proud to be on the side where my leader can say with sincerity that the interest of our people must be at the center of every measure that we take. This is what we live by. Mr. Speaker, I cannot help but recall, prior to my appointment as senator and minister, in this Labour government. How I listened attentively to previous budget addresses, thinking how timely and appropriate they all were. Oh, how my respect for visionary Prime Minister and member for the Vogue constituency increased with every budget, as he always had the appropriate responses to existing challenges and circumstances on the ground. Mr. Speaker, I say to you and to the citizens of Dominica that the fiscal year 2020-2021 statement was indeed well-crafted, certainly appropriate and quite timely. This is a budget that was born out of permutations and iterations pegged to the principles of resource management, growth, safeguards, and resilience to advance our economic and human development. You won't understand it. You won't understand what I'm saying. It is a budget for the common man and women. I'm talking about you, not him. You, yes. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance clearly articulated how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected not only governments, but the way of life of our people. We know how scores of you were affected. We met many of you over the past few months. We know how the tourist industry was shaken to its core. We know that non-essential services were severely affected. We know that small businesses, particularly barbershops, bars, the self-employed, vendors, bus drivers, you name it, they all were affected. And that loss of income directly translated into an inability to meet obligations like loans, mortgages, rent, and in some cases, to put food on the table. And that is why this government came to your assistance. The Prime Minister, in his May 17, 2020 address, presented our COVID-19 response and articulated a comprehensive strategy to mitigate the risk associated with a pandemic and to manage the burdens of a nation. Mr. Speaker, this caring government announced the following: funding for income support for people who lost their jobs. Mr. Speaker, this facility exceeded $15 million, qualifying hoteliers, farmers, and manufacturers who had already benefited from a special loan facility at Aid Bank were granted a moratorium on interest and principal. Through the same Aid Bank, government made funds available for the self-employed, micro and small businesses to obtain up to $15,000 at 1% interest for bridge financing. Mr. Speaker, you know very well that in the world of business, 1% interest is tantamount to a gift. Mr. Speaker, the deadline to file personal and corporate taxes were extended in spite of the need for revenue to fund high expenditures. Mr. Speaker, this government is clear about the task at hand, and we are clear on our strategy to bring prosperity to this country, even in difficult moments. It is against this backdrop, Mr. Speaker, and our first-hand knowledge of our reality that we have crafted a budget for you. So while countries are grappling for their survival, we are merely adapting to create opportunities for our people. This government is not frustrated. This government is not flustered by the limitations of challenges. We are not chained by the tensions of uncertainty, but we are freed by innovation, aptitude, and willingness. And we are steered by leadership that stands robust and second to none, Mr. Speaker. We are committed to you, fellow compatriots. Together, we will be fine. We will be fine because we made a choice on December 6, 2019, that we will allow a government of good judgment to manage the affairs of our state, Mr. Speaker. Imagine if the result were the other way. Imagine if the result were the other way, Mr. Speaker. This period, Mr. Speaker, if the result were the other way, would have been like the Titanic on its maiden voyage, a sinking ship, a train wreck. Mr. Speaker, our fortunes would have spiraled into uncertainty. Mr. Speaker, the members on the other side have taken opposition to new levels, Mr. Speaker. They have taken opposition to such levels that they can't agree to anything. They can't agree to common sense, Mr. Speaker. Listen to this. Did you hear the semblance of a rebuttal this morning, Mr. Speaker?
Senator, just one second. The member for Rosa North, I'm going to point out to you a standing order. That standing order 53. If a member shows disregard for authority of the chair, or abuses the rules of the House by persistently and willfully obstructing the business of the House, or otherwise, the Speaker or the Chairman shall direct the attention of the members to the incident, mentioning by name the member concerned. Whenever a member has been so named by the Speaker or by the Chairman, and it goes on to say what action can be taken. I'm asking you and I'm cautioning you to cease from distracting members when they are delivering. There are members on both sides. There are members on both sides who are new to the House, especially the youth. People like Senator Laville, people like Senator Sanford, we want them to learn in the right way. He's delivering and you are distracting. Consistently, persistently. Continue, Senator. Continue, Senator. I won't. Member again. Okay. So Senator Laville, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it seems you may have to repeat, Mr. Speaker. This reminds me of my days in high school. Back in pubescent wisdom, Mr. Speaker, it seems that's the environment I'm in right now. Thank you. Did you hear the semblance of a rebuttal, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, it took almost 2 hours to say absolutely nothing. A complete, dismal disconnection and waste of words. The crafters of that response must have been disappointed that it's only in the conclusion, the last 5 minutes, that was the attempt to get into substance. So while the leader of the opposition was giving marks for implementation, that's for various ministries, Mr. Speaker, I submit that in this honorable House, the only mark that should be given today is this. An F, Mr. Speaker, for his attempted contribution this morning. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, It is clear that the opposition was waiting for this government to turn its back on its people. They were hoping that this budget statement would be rife with new taxes to burden the people, just for them to score runs in this house. Instead, we heard a budget filled with indicatives to help foster economic resilience as we build a dynamic Dominica. So I stand in my capacity as Minister for Public Works and the Digital Economy to support the policies, programs, and plans articulated by the Honorable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, it is no secret that Dominica is beautiful, with majestic mountains, flowing clear rivers that sculpt our landscape into an ecotourist dream. But these natural attributes, which make us unique, also showcase our vulnerabilities to natural disasters. And today, we have vivid memories of this, Mr. Speaker. Memories of devastating impact of heavy rains on our numerous rivers and streams. Those swollen waterways have flooded and overwhelmed low-lying communities and also caused significant damage to our road network and bridges. We recognize this challenge, and so we have included these experiences into our planning and design of our physical infrastructure as we are committed to build back better. Mr. Speaker, I will first speak of this aspect of my portfolio, the projects in 2019-2020. In looking back at the last fiscal year, I am truly amazed at my ministry's output, even with the challenge and the interruptions from COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, this small elite team called Technical Services was able to implement and deliver nearly 3 major capital projects per month last fiscal year. In terms of value, that is about $16 million per month. Were it not for this pandemic, we might have been talking about 6 major projects per month and $32 million per month instead. Mr. Speaker, here are some of the deliverables. The West Coast Road Project. These were interventions from Tropical Storm Erica. It included the rehabilitation of damaged areas along the 45-kilometer Eo-Libla Highway, to include reconstructions of 3 new bridges, namely Makushri, Batali, and Point Round. This also included the rehabilitation of 13 culvert crossings, rehabilitation of several road edge failures, subgrade and pavement failures, and included the installation of numerous safety features. West Coast interventions. These were interventions that were initiated after the devastation from Hurricane Maria. This included the construction of 5 box culvert crossings, 2 retaining walls, and surface drainage. Checkall Valley Road, rehabilitation of 700 meters of road, including drainage and pavement in the Checkall Valley area. Cochrane Road rehabilitation, phases 1 and 2, amounting to over $23 million. We can all see for ourselves. The Cochrane people are now fortunate to drive on what I consider to be a modern highway. Tatan Road. This comprised of the widening of approximately 1 kilometer of road from Purple Turtle Junction to the Bell Hall Bridge. Layu West. This was the construction of a 170-meter river wall with sheet piling and the restoration of the road from the Layu Bridge going west towards the village, the Layu Emergency Shelter. I will allow the Member of Parliament for the constituency to speak further to that, as she was very much involved in this project. The protection of Kashibona. This included the construction of a 150-meter river defense to increase resilience at the Douglas Charles International Airport. And I say international because the excitement is in the air. We all heard the announcement by the Prime Minister yesterday, hence the reason why my thinking is on International Airport today, Mr. Speaker. We are all excited about that. the Rosa River walls and promenade. I will also allow the Member of Parliament for Rosa to speak to that project, but we can all see that remarkable transformation in the Rosa area. The Calibishi wall, construction of a 135-meter sea defense wall. Coptol Phase 1, construction of a 700-meter rigid pavement, drains and sidewalks in that area. Repairs to numerous bridges, including the Dominica China Friendship Bridge, rehabilitation of EC Low Block Bridge, repairs to Bath Estate Bridge, repairs to the West Bridge, and the list goes on. We had numerous interventions where we effected road rehabilitation, paving, rigid pavement, and asphaltic pavement throughout the island. Now, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that my staff worked hard last year, so they need to be rewarded. My gift to them will be more training opportunities, peer review, improvement of the working environment to include better design and project management software. After this investment, I will then expect an even further increase in the output for the next fiscal year. In the new fiscal year, we'll implement a number of high-value projects, most of which are new, but we will seek to close all the ongoing projects. These include retaining walls in Paybush, Dodan Bridge, One Prosper Road, Coptol Phase 2, Bagatelle Bridge, Hampstead Bridge Rehabilitation, among others. Mr. Speaker, now for the new projects. Aren't we all eager about the Rosa Enhancement Project? This will completely reshape our city, starting with the Botanic Gardens bypass, the 140-meter revetment wall, and Great George Street transformations. These are just in the first phase, Mr. Speaker. But while the member for Rosa will speak more to that, I cannot help but recall my reading to reference a familiarity. Mr. Speaker, back in the day, I'm talking way back in the day, a long time ago, before Christ, there was once an Athenian general called Pericles. Mr. Speaker, with his growing surplus, he commissioned temples, halls, theaters, streets, and he put all his craftsmen to work. Mr. Speaker, this transformed Athens completely and helped them to step into the golden age. Today, I am hearing a prime minister talking about transforming Rosa because the city is the hub of a country's economic and social life. Do you hear the parallels, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, if Athens could be transformed in 478 before Christ, I have no doubt that Rosa will continue to be transformed in 2020, and by the grace of God, we will march proudly into the golden age of our prosperity. Rehabilitation of Layo Bridge. The E.O. Libla Highway is the primary route serving villages from Rosa to the northern villages, Mr. Speaker. The Hillsborough Bridges are two single-lane bridges providing access along the Layo River. The Eastern Bridge was damaged in 2017 by flooding events from Hurricane Maria. Since then, the western section has been used to accommodate traffic in both directions. This is a major cause of conflict and affects serviceability. Due to inherent vulnerabilities, Mr. Speaker, associated with this aged infrastructure, compounded with the increased occurrence and magnitude of flooding events, the ministry is of the view that the damaged structure should be repaired to provide redundancy and restore normalcy in that area. The primary interventions will include reconstruction of the center pier and southern abutment, as well as replacement of the bridge deck. Cannabis. I meant to say carbonis, but there was also good news about, you know what? Yes. Carbonis retaining walls. The Cabernet area has been compromised for a number of years and poses a risk to road users. The alternative route through Wharton Waven is also compromised, hence the need for interventions. The interventions at Cabernet is very critical, as it would significantly improve on our road safety in that general area. The interventions address major road edge failures and collapses. The scope involves the construction of retaining walls, drainage structures, and restoration of the road in this area. Bell's retaining wall. Bell serves as the main route from the Douglas Charles International Airport to the West Coast and to the city, Mr. Speaker. It is one of the most important roads in our road network, hence the need to ensure serviceability. The area was compromised during the passage of Tropical Storm Erica. The scope involves the construction of retaining walls, drainage structures, and road restoration. Warner interventions. Warner is one of 3 routes to provide access from Port Cassé to the West Coast. All the routes are vulnerable to some extent due to storm damage or instability. Based on technical advice, Warner provides the cost-effective alternative for immediate restoration. This investment will address major road edge failures and collapses. The scope involves the construction of retaining walls, drainage structures, restoration of road sections, guardrails, and road safety measures. Mr. Speaker, my conscience does not permit me to go to sleep if I have not done my very best. With that being said, I recognize that there are too many accidents on our streets, too many deaths, too many injuries. We must do better as road users and endure an attitude of responsibility, not only for ourselves, but for others. Government must also do the same, Mr. Speaker. So it is for this reason that we have allocated $750,000 towards road safety, Mr. Speaker. North Coast Road Project. In the budget, I believe it's called Marragot to Portsmouth Road Feasibility Study. Mr. Speaker, another major project on the cards is the North Coast Road Project. This first phase includes feasibility studies and preliminary designs, and this shall commence soon. The contract has been signed. The first phase will inform the construction of 36.1 kilometers of roadway from Hatton Garden to Borough Square in Portsmouth, and shall include the linkages to incorporate the new international airport. CDB UKSIF Lubia to Bagatelle Road Project. Mr. Speaker, in addition to these major projects, we also have the Lubia to Bagatelle Road Project, a £25 million grant for the rehabilitation of 20 kilometers of roadway. At the time the project was conceptualized, the amount might have been sufficient. However, the catastrophic damage from Hurricane Maria necessitated new considerations, thereby nearly quadrupling the cost. The scope and designs are being reconsidered in view of introducing increased value engineering to allow for commencement of the rehabilitation during the new fiscal year. World Bank funded Disaster Vulnerability Project, DVRP. Mr. Speaker, while the Minister for the Environment will speak further to that, I cannot help but mention a contribution of $126 million to our economy, Mr. Speaker. Quite substantial investment in our road network in the East, Mr. Speaker. And we will support the ministry in every way with our surveyors, our engineers, our technical team to ensure the completion of this road project with the necessary resilience that's required. road rehabilitation works at Maho. Mr. Speaker, this is another critical area for consideration. This road section between L&O Guest House in Lower Belfast and the Credit Union in Centre Maho. This is a bottleneck among a few others on the EO-Libla Highway. We are therefore reserving an amount of $750,000 in the first instance to reconfigure drains, curbs, walls, roads, and sidewalks to improve access in this area. As a Mao man, I am grateful for this consideration of this project as a model. Mr. Speaker, while we have numerous other major projects, permit me to speak to this honorable House and the citizens about routine road maintenance. These activities are a major component of my ministry's portfolio, Mr. Speaker. As we have done in the past few months, we will also continue to do and move more aggressively to address road safety concerns and driving conditions into the new fiscal year. We know of the challenges around the island, in Delis, Boetica, Rosa South, to name a few. These PAL reps have been knocking on our doors, and we assure you the door is open. We will address your concerns. On behalf of my ministry and this government, I wish to thank all road users, Mr. Speaker, for their patience as we build a resilient physical infrastructure and a resilient country. It cannot happen overnight, Mr. Speaker. If it does, it is not likely to be resilient. Many villagers, youth, and elders are our eyes on the ground. They know the streets better than we do, Mr. Speaker. Please continue to call us with your concerns. Write us, come into the ministry, come to see us. Speak to your PAL reps. Believe me, Mr. Speaker, I have a file for each and every one of them. Mr. Speaker, midway through the financial year 2019-2020, the portfolio of digital economy was added to the Ministry of Public Works, giving birth to the Ministry of Public Works and the Digital Economy. Government is ever minded of the critical importance of physical infrastructure.
30 minutes, huh? 30 more minutes.
30?
Yeah.
30. Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Government is ever minded of the critical importance of physical infrastructure to the country's economic growth and its capacity to attract private investment and to the well-being and quality of life of residents and visitors, Mr. Speaker. The country's water resources remain as one of the most valuable assets, and significant investment is being made in order to meet the targets of 100% available potable water supply on island. In addition, government sees the digital economy as a major pillar for economic growth, recognizing how technology stimulates growth. It is against this backdrop that the Ministry of Public Works and the Digital Economy has focused on key interventions that would lend to the creation of jobs for the next fiscal year, Mr. Speaker, that will contribute towards substantial growth while building resilience of our physical and digital infrastructure. With the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, implementation of the ministry's work program was affected as activities slowed, as the island responded to this dreaded virus. This pandemic has also influenced the ministry's plans and programs for the fiscal year 2020-2021, as focus will be placed on high-impact projects as we seek to stimulate the economy. Operating under this new normal has brought more significance to the digital economy portfolio, as most transactions, meetings, conferences are now being done using digital platforms. Mr. Speaker, for the first time in our country's history, the government created a ministerial portfolio called the digital economy. It was at a time when most of us had no idea as to what that even meant, Mr. Speaker. We are pioneers, but this is exactly the visionary thinking and leadership needed for Dominica today. Who else would have envisioned that timing, the significance of the role of technology, Mr. Speaker? Who else? Mr. Speaker, the ICT unit played an integral role in the development of the digital economy as it is mandated to provide e-government services. Achievements for fiscal year 2019-2020 include the following: redesigning the government's web portal and the intranet, development of an online curfew system for the police force, development of a weather and notification application for the Office of Disaster Management, development of a labor management system for the Division of Labor, development of human resource software for the Dominica Prison Services, development of a Ministry of Education, Financial and Scholarship Management system. Mr. Speaker, government successfully implemented a work-from-home program which allowed for the continuation of a number of activities as the implementation of e-government has already started. For example, many were able to file their personal income tax returns online with support from staff of the Inland Revenue Department operating from their homes, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, over the past few months, the government's website has served as the main source of information on a number of programs being implemented. In the new fiscal year, the plan is to continue to revamp and enhance e-government to bring about improvements in government interface and overall service delivery. Currently, passport forms are available online. However, the customer interface and experience will go further by allowing the submission and acceptance of completed forms online. We are in the final stages of the e-payment system rollout, Mr. Speaker. Before the end of this year, our citizens will be able to pay online for numerous services offered by the government of Dominica. This is significant, Mr. Speaker. The ministry plans to roll out Dominode in this financial year. Dominode is for anyone who needs geographic information on Dominica, Mr. Speaker. For example, it would benefit schools and students as a way to learn about the country. Professionals and government departments could use this tool for analysis, for sharing documents and geographic data. If an agency was looking for a map of Dominica, which pinpoints all the schools in Dominica, for example, this can be found on Dominode. In a nutshell, it's a platform that provides for the publication and management of geospatial data in a consistent and easy-to-use interface and environment. Among our plans shall be the creation of surf stations at government buildings to facilitate the completion of online forms for any ministry within government, Mr. Speaker. This will limit the time it takes to do business with government, including the wait time to see public officers. We will continue our drive to reduce the use of paper by 90% within the public sector. This certainly won't happen overnight, but we will get there, Mr. Speaker. That's why we have started the work to create a comprehensive public service-wide documentation management system, Mr. Speaker. The Digicel project. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica entered into a standalone service agreement with Digicel Dominica to build a robust, redundant, and resilient digital infrastructure that's required to create the enabling environment for the provision of digital services as part of the transformation of Dominica into a digitally advanced society. Components of the project includes a core network which include 19 carrier-grade VSAT satellite connections, public Wi-Fi, and over 16 selected sites, safe city, CCTV surveillance, connected health, and e-learning hub. So effectively, in Dominica, we are ahead of the game, Mr. Speaker, with our built-for-purpose fiber optic network, which connects government sites around the island. To oversee the implementation of this project, Mr. Speaker, government engaged a coordinator for the implementation. Significant progress was recorded for the period under review, as Digicel has implemented 90% of the services as per agreement and is currently wrapping up site preparatory works. We are well on our way to this digital transformation, Mr. Speaker. This is not talk. We have made serious strides. We have made strides in establishing the network, the platform for this transformation. To advance the digital transformation, government then secured a loan of $75.6 million from the World Bank in June of 2020. This will finance critical projects over a period of 5 years. Broadly speaking, Mr. Speaker, the objective of this project is to develop the core foundations to enable digitization of government and improve access and adoption of digital services, skills, and technologies among individuals and businesses. This will provide funding for the continued implementation of e-government, as well as to advance work on payment systems. This project will also be heavily focused on entrepreneurship and job creation. Mr. Speaker, this is what we have been waiting for. These are the foundation blocks of our dynamic Dominica, Mr. Speaker. Our Dominica version 2.0. I am truly excited, and so should you, Mr. Speaker. And yes, Senator John Finn, I heard your contributions, and in our 8th memoir, we have considered quite a few of these contributions for the digital economy. So all our students shall benefit from digital devices for their education, as well as the teachers. I must note, however, that it's something that this government has done before. So I hope that this is embraced by all and not ridiculed. Cabinet recently approved the request to form the Project Implementation Unit, Mr. Speaker. We are finalizing the terms of reference for a number of highly skilled project management, procurement, change management, and IT-related jobs. In the new fiscal year, we'll also establish a digital economy unit. The proposed unit's main functions are to create a roadmap for the digital economy through the development of relevant policies, strategies, and legislations, to facilitate coordination between the public sector, private sector, friendly governments, and international organizations to foster investment and related digital transformation, to function as a clearinghouse for initiatives and programs consistent with government's vision for the digital economy, to ensure that the implementation of the Digicel standalone agreement meets government's expectations and all digital services are utilized, to ensure that the interventions under the digital transformation project are sustained through an aggressive post-project sustainable plan, and to initiate activities and programs that will lend to creation of jobs in this sector. We are targeting our people for this unit, Mr. Speaker. We want some young, visionary, pioneering, free-thinking Dominicans at the helm of this unit. We want to chart our course, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, apart from the direct hires that will result from these units, we also expect a wide demographic to benefit. I'm talking about small businesses, innovators, entrepreneurs, producers, farmers, fisher folks, students, teachers, the traveler, everyone, Mr. Speaker. Have you heard of the Internet of Things, Mr. Speaker? Technology is available for everything. On the consumer front, we expect all to benefit, Mr. Speaker, from improved service delivery, not only in government, but in the private sector also. We expect greater reliability, lower transactional costs, all these in a stable and secure environment. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased for the opportunities that will be presented for young people. This is your moment. Own it. And my ministry will walk with you. We will walk hand in hand with you to support you as you take your businesses online, as you benefit from the 6 billion consumers that are available worldwide. We will break the chains that exist in transacting business online. We are there for you. We will help you. We'll help you to thrive and to get the fair reward that you deserve for your sacrifice and your innovation. We need you more than ever. Starting next month, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say by our hard work with Israel Aid and UNDP, we'll already start training at least 60 young professionals ages 25 through 40, where they will get the benefits of learning opportunities to be able to access freelance platforms and the gig economy. Mr. Speaker, recognizing that this budget is for everyone, we have some other business to discuss. Not so exciting as digital economy, but very important, I must add. The Electrical Division is charged under the Electricity Supply Act, number 21 of 1996, to inspect and certify all electrical installations before they are connected to the national grid. This certification is done in accordance with IEE regulations. For fiscal year 2019-2020, Mr. Speaker, the division conducted 4,200 inspections and issued 3,577 certificates for electrical installations. They will continue with even greater efficiency over the next fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, you may recall how dark things were after Hurricane Maria. Our lights were literally turned off. We were back in the dark ages with our bullseyes, Mr. Speaker. You remember that, Darrell? I remember meeting people in Mao and they would ask, did you receive light? Are you reconnected yet? But how are you not reconnected? And I see the linesmen. Mr. Speaker, I was fortunate that it was only in December of 2017 that I got connected, whilst I know for many others it took much longer. And our streets became very dark even after people's homes were reconnected. But the government embarked on an ambitious mission to provide more lighting on our streets than even before Maria. Now, Mr. Speaker, our business at night is even brighter. Our team remains committed to the cause of safety in the new fiscal year. So we will continue with our program to provide better, more resilient, more robust lighting powered by renewable energy. So $600,000 is allocated in the new fiscal year to that end, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have been blessed to inherit a culture of hard work in my ministry. This is a ministry that was most recently led by two stalwarts in the name of Miriam Blanchard and Honorable and Dr. Colin McIntyre. On the technical front, we have what we consider, as I said, an elite group of technical consultants. They are the gatekeepers of our infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. They ensure the safety and security of our people. I salute them. I also salute the Electrical Services Division, our road surveyors, building maintenance department, and our administrative staff. I wish to place on record my gratitude to the FS, formerly my PS, Ms. Edwards, and also PS Roland Royer, who have been extremely diligent and faithful to the task at hand. These good people are not credited enough for their devotion to public service, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to salute all the contractors who have worked with us, who have maintained our roads, cleared the drains, built the culverts, the bridges, cleared the waterways. They work in the hot sun to build our infrastructure. There is no Ministry of Works without you. It is through your collective efforts that over the last financial year, we were able to achieve so much. I welcome the ICT unit to our team, to our family, Mr. Speaker. This team that I've had the pleasure to lead came with an inherent array of skills that were tested during this COVID-19 period. Over the last 6 to 7 months, we were all forced to conduct the business online, and this very small unit was able to effectively command our digital migration. I wish to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for entrusting me with the honor to serve my country in this office. No honor is greater than that of service. I would like to thank my colleagues with which I serve. You embody representation with your character and good spirit. Working with you reassures me that we can and we will secure a better Dominica. I want to thank the entire public service for their hard work. The frontline workers, I salute you. I wish to thank the good people who pray for me and support me, my family, friends, the good people from Mao, where I was raised, the neighboring villages, and even those I have not met. I embrace your love. I am covered with your prayers. I am guided by God's grace. And in the same spirit that I rise, so too I shall descend to continue to serve the good people of Dominica. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this Honorable House be adjourned until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Hold on a second.
Second, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that this House be adjourned until 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. Thursday, 30th July 2020. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday, 30th, 2020.
Mr. Speaker.